everyone. It's K&T, Kiss and Tell Magazine podcast. You're here with me, Dr. Jenny. And today we have our guest returning from last time, Aimee. And we're going to be talking about authenticity, referring to in your dating life and your sex life. So, Aimee, talk to us. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Aimee Evnin-Bingham. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist in California. I'm in San Francisco proper, and I see couples and individuals around sex and relationships. Thanks for having me again. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for returning. And we had a blast last time we were here. So, so authenticity seems to be thrown around a lot lately. And I don't know if people realize the magnitude of that word. That it's not just something that is easy to do. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is a big word, right? And it's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people try to connect to and do. But I think it is something that's kind of something that we've missed for a long time, right? It's this vision of being yourself, right? Being your authentic self, like being who you truly are in front of others, right?
Mhm.
And it's also this piece about knowing who that person is, right? Which I think a lot of us have maybe squished down that part of ourself in some ways, or said like, oh, that part of myself isn't important, or no one would like this part. But I think it's becoming more of a piece of like, okay, well, let's be ourselves again. Let's start to show up and show ourselves to other people, right?
Right.
Which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with you. Being authentic, to me, why don't we define it? I mean, what is your definition compared to mine? My definition of being authentic is that you're not really apologizing for yourself. And what I mean by that is you're not, there's a tendency that I'll hear people apologize for not liking something that the other person doesn't like.
Hmm.
So if they like, for example, sushi food, and the other person doesn't like the sushi food and thinks it's gross and nasty, don't apologize for that. Say, I'm sorry, I don't like that. Instead of just saying, no, I don't like sushi food, that's just doesn't do it for me. What
Hmm.
what do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, that's a big one, right? With food, especially with
Yeah,
your taste, right? And
right.
what you enjoy eating. And
Mhm,
so I think it's like this piece around why are we placating others just to make others happy in that space, right?
mhm,
When maybe it's not your favorite food and maybe you'd rather not have that, or maybe an allergy to it, who knows,
right.
right? And so it's that piece around, okay, so if this isn't the food you want to eat, can we talk about that, right? Is there openness to find a place that we both like, right? Or we
Right.
can find middle ground in.
Right, and or not being able to show it. So I know
Hmm.
the food analogy is easy to do, but some people are not authentic in showing that they don't want
Yes.
that. They'll go along with the restaurant and then look for something as easy as pop to eat, whether it's just white rice.
Right.
I mean, and they're like, oh, I'm not really that hungry. And, instead of admitting prior to the chance of saying, no, I'm not into sushi. Um, and granted, I know we're using food and there's more to life than eating. But to me, authenticity is owning who you are,
Mhm.
you
But
know?
I think the food piece is a great part to kind of segue into the dating world, right? It's
Mhm.
that piece around that very basic part of dating, right? Where you're
Right.
choosing where you're going to go meet for the first time.
Mhm.
And so the food piece is huge, right? And sometimes, sure, we want to be polite when we first meet people, but there's also like this people pleaser piece that's like, well, I don't want to say exactly what I want yet because I'm afraid that may turn the person off or may not want to connect with the person, right? Or the person may not like me because I chose pizza versus sushi, who knows?
Mhm. Right.
And so there's a fear there, right? Of like, what if I say the wrong thing, what's going to happen? right? And I wonder just on the other side of that, if you were to voice like, oh, I actually really don't like sushi or whatever the thing was that the person gave it as an offering, I wonder what would happen, right? I
Mhm.
wonder if we could find common ground and be able to notice like, okay, we're humans and we need to eat or we need to find a drink somewhere. Can we find a common ground, right? Is that really the end of the world?
Right. And when it comes to dating, part of the journey in my mind of dating is learning about the other person, whomever.
Yeah.
But in that learning, you have a good understanding of your authentic self. And
Hmm.
do you think that happens? And do you find that happening with the couples that you work with or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think just that basic piece, right, of asking for what you want is really hard for couples,
Mhm,
and my individual clients who are single people who are looking for partners. Just that first ask is really tough, right? And
mhm,
so there's a lot of fear, right, around
mhm,
what could happen if they were to ask for their need, that their partner may not like them or not want to be with them, or that their partner's going to get upset. And sometimes it's irrational, sometimes it's rational because our partner has gotten upset in the past. And sometimes it's just irrational or it's a fear from when they were in childhood when a parent would get really upset when they'd ask for a need, right? So there's a lot of undoing, right? To be your authentic self, right? Of like, oh, okay, this person in front of me hopefully is someone who's going to hear you or listen or be a safe person for you to give information to.
mhm.
But obviously you don't always know that.
Right. So, what are some things that you think people can do to be authentic? I mean, one thing that I say to people, that in order to know if you're authentic, and you agree or disagree with what I tell people, but what I usually say is if your heart and mind are on the same page, that's the easiest way of knowing
Mm-hmm.
if being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. And I would agree with that too. Um, I think, for me, first of all, it's knowing yourself, right?
Mhm,
It's this piece about like differentiation of self. And I think I learned this more recently from like the developmental model, where they talk a lot about differentiation. So in order for you to be in differentiation of self, you need to know like, what do I like? What are my opinions? What are my insights, right?
mhm.
That's the first process of differentiation, right? Right. And then the next process is, can I say that to another human and not be worried
Right,
that they're going to hurt me or be angry or whatever? And then the third process of that is can I listen to other people's needs or opinions and and not internalize it, right? Just take it
right.
as whatever the person in front of me is saying. And so I think I try to look at it in that lens, right? Can you first sit with your own self and be happy with whatever those opinions, thoughts, ideas, feelings are? Maybe not
Mhm,
happy, but content or feel secure in that.
mhm.
Um, and if you can do that, then I think it can give you a lot of empowerment to be able to be your true self, whoever that person is.
And do you think authenticity is something that's easy to come by? Or do you think it's let me rephrase that. Do you think it's something that you can maintain throughout your life? So let's say you're authentic in your early 20s. Can you maintain that into your 30s and 40s? Or is it something that you're constantly evolving?
Yeah, I think it's always evolving, right?
Okay.
I think we're always growing as humans, right? We're always learning and changing and pulling in new things into our worlds. That's how I always view life. And so, yes, I think you can get to a space of authenticity and feel
Mm-hmm.
really whole, really secure. And then something happens, like a big life event, either externally in our world or internally in our world.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes our perceptions, our way of working through the world, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think both um, and I think that it's important to just hone on the present moment. Like, where am I at right now? Can I take a little temperature check of who I am right now? And yeah, I think to your question saying, yeah, I think it is hard for folks to get to that level. I don't think it's an easy feat. I think that at least, growing up, and I talk to a lot of millennials, I think growing up, millennials are raised by baby boomers, right?
Mhm.
Or, and some Gen X, but mostly baby boomers or even older. And I think that there was a piece of like millennials weren't allowed to talk about feelings in
Yeah,
their relationships with their parents because maybe their parents didn't know how to hold those feelings because they had to deal with their parents who had just gone through like the Great Depression, right? Who
but
didn't have time for emotions. Um,
the silent generation.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, right,
Mhm.
right. And
Mhm.
so I think there's this piece of like millennials really wanting that validation and the empathy from others, and they obviously wanted it from their caregivers, but their caregivers didn't have maybe those tools to be able to do that for them. Um, and so I think when it comes to authenticity, it's like, can someone sit with me? Can someone nurture me? Can I nurture myself? Right? Can I reparent myself and nurture my own needs? And that's okay versus like kind of being that inner critic of like it's not okay to do that
Mhm.
because we didn't see that growing up. Um, that's kind of what my experience has been. What has your experience been with that?
Well, personally, at least in my growing up, I was lucky to have a parent that let me share, whatever
Mm,
it was I was going through, and they listened
good.
without judgment, and they were reassuring. So, um, in that case, I was lucky that my authentic self was easy to develop from that support system. So, um, and then once I was on my own, living alone for as long as I did, that helped me too, because
Mm, hmm.
that independence and having to take care of myself, I had to really learn, okay, what's happening around me, what am I doing at my work, what am I doing when I'm hanging out with my friends, am I really wanting to do what they're doing, or am I doing it just to not be alone in
Hmm.
that moment? So that was my experience, and then I learned from that. But see, I also have an ability to understand immediately it's not about me. Meaning, when my friends would be unhappy about something, a date didn't work out, a relationship didn't work out, they were let go at work, or parent problems, or whatever it was,
Yeah.
I could listen and know this is something they're going through. I'm not going through it. I can be unbiased and supportive.
Hmm.
So, um, so it was easy for me to be authentic and with having a speech impediment, I had to be authentic quickly
Mm,
because the world said, "Wait a minute, you're different." And,
mm, hmm.
and in my mind, I don't see it that way.
Sure.
I'm only different because you're telling me I'm different.
Mm,
I don't view it that way. So
yeah.
you view it as a problem. I view it as that's how I was born, and there's nothing I can
Sure.
do about it. And
Sure.
it's not like I was laying there in the hospital going, "Hey, give me a speech impediment, please." So understanding that
Yeah.
how it is. Wait a minute, what's the world telling me, and what am
Hmm.
I experiencing? At least in regard to the speech impediment. Am
Yeah.
I allowing their label to define me because they thought it as a problem and a limitation, or am I allowing what's actually happening in my life showing me it's okay? I have friends.
Hmm.
I am dating. I am working. Uh, you know, and no one is interpreting for me. It's not like
Sure.
I'm looking at somebody and saying, "Will you talk for me?" I know,
Hmm.
I don't do that. So,
Right. Right.
no, but
I guess with all of that, I wonder for you when you think about dating, right? And being
Mhm.
that authentic version of yourself, right? And being able
Mhm.
to show up, right? You're not
Right,
hiding anything because it is who you are. I
right.
wonder how that either helped or didn't help your experience.
Oh, yeah, I learned quickly when somebody was interested in me because they're really interested in me, or they were interested in me for sex reasons only. You
Hmm.
know, I learned that very quickly, and
Hmm.
it was definitely a hard lesson to learn. You know, because when I was growing up, you learn. I think it's still happening today. I haven't dated in a long time, but and tell me if I'm wrong, but there's a tendency to think that the only reason you matter is if you're with a partner. So that defines you. So if you're dating, you must be important. You must
Mm.
be have love. You must, you know, all that stuff. See,
Hmm.
that was my thinking in my 20s. So I had to be dating. But then I learned really quickly about how I was treated. Wait a minute, no, I don't, you know? So, but like I said, that was a lesson I had learned.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah.
uh, do you think that's still happening dating wise? Are people still thinking they have to be dating to be important?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a definitely a big piece of self-worth, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you are with a partner, right? There's
Right.
still this piece of, you should find a partner and that makes you whole in some ways.
Right.
And what I like to tell my clients is I never like that way of thinking because I think we can all
Mm-hmm.
be whole ourselves, right? Or at least be lots of different parts of the puzzle and make up one person. And the person next to us who we decide to be connected to intimately should be someone that is also whole and has their own stuff going on, right? And they add to our life, not necessarily complete our life, right? I think
Right.
it's a better way to look at it because it just allows us to see that we're all individuals, right? No one's perfect, right? Not even any no, there's no perfect relationship either,
Oh,
right?
no. Yeah.
Right. But I think there are, I do have some clients who are focused on not dating, who are focused on learning more about themselves first. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there can be a lot of power in that as well, right? Just learning who you are, what you like, what feels good first, and then moving into dating when they are ready. Because that can also be really powerful, just working on yourself too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it
Mhm.
is that, and then going back to what you said earlier, you know, about it being a journey. Don't think
Mhm.
that, what's that saying? Life is a journey, not a destination.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, that don't think that once I hit this milestone, like I'm living with my partner now. Okay, that's a milestone. Don't think that once that happens, therefore I don't have to work as hard. No, you still work at the relationship. So
Yeah.
don't think there's a stopping point of that you don't have to put energy into, you know, being authentic. Um,
Right.
so yeah.
Right, right. And I think that's also a piece too of there's a huge vulnerability, right? And
Mhm.
being authentic, especially with a new person when you're first
Right.
starting off dating someone new, right? And so, I think it's important to slow down with yourself, right? Not feel like you have to be your full self if you're not ready for that, right? If you are, great, do it.
Right.
But if you're not ready for it, right, just give yourself pieces. Like, I like to think about that. Like, I always like to give my clients like small little chunks. They want to take on the world, but that's overwhelming. And so
Yeah.
let's think of like these small little chunks that you can add to conversation or add to connecting with a new person. And so we think about three things, like maybe three things that you can share with a new person that's vulnerable or authentic to yourself. And doing that on the first date, like what are some safe things that you feel I want to just try this on and I want to try on being myself in front of a new human? And what does that feel like when you actually are your authentic self around it? And I think it just allows people to prepare themselves for those authentic moments instead of like fearing them. So it just breaks it down a little bit too.
Yeah. And you know, back to my comment about the feelings and the mind being on the same page.
Hmm.
You know, using the chunks that you mentioned. I mean, whatever they are for the person, using that little chunk, you'll know immediately if you are paying attention to what the mind and the heart are doing,
Yeah, right.
immediately if this is good for you or not.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Exactly.
the body's showing you, the mind's showing you too. It's just whether we're listening, because sometimes we don't do it. So
Right.
we
Yeah.
think, oh, it'll get better next time. Or, maybe if I wait a month,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
yeah, I mean, to me, that means I agree that that's a part of boundaries,
Mm.
of authenticity is saying, okay, I do need X, Y, Z, whatever that may be, but how much do I need X, Y, Z? Is it something
Mm.
that's gonna end the relationship, or is it just something that has to be met, bent a little bit? I can see the attempting to meet my X, Y, Z, so I'm willing to um, concede a little bit, and that be,
Hmm.
so, but that's part of the communication, in the relationship is being able to say, okay, I see you're trying. You want to meet my need because you and I do connect on so many levels.
Hmm.
So, you know, that, but am I making sense? I feel like I'm talking in
It,
a circle.
yeah, no, I mean, it's connecting in my brain. There's a piece of like, well, first of all, like saying what your needs are, being
Mhm,
worried about what other people may say or think about your need.
mhm,
But also I heard there's a piece of like, okay, if you can notice that someone's trying to meet your need,
right.
right? Can you slow down with that? Can we meet in the middle, right? Can
Mhm,
we not expect too much out of the other person, right?
right.
Especially as you get to know a new human.
Mhm,
Can we not expect so much out of them? And that's a part of like accepting their authentic self too,
right.
right? And saying like that this is who they are. They may not have all the skills and knowledge I have because they're a different human. They have
Mhm,
different skills and knowledge. Can they, can we agree to disagree in this space, or can we come together in a common space over what we both enjoy?
right. And a lot of what you and I have mentioned so far, don't you think we can apply that into talking about sex, sexuality, sexual orientation? I mean, if we want to keep it simple and talk about sex in regard to the relationship, to the intimacy between two people, three people, whatever it is that you're into, um, so being authentic with that. How do you do that when you talk to people?
Yeah, I think that's a huge one, right? I think being first of all, like sexual identity, sexual orientation, the way we present ourselves, like sexual expression, right? I think can all be very hard, nuanced language, right? And so I think for people in general, again, going back to the self, right? Learning what that means to you, right? Not what that means to everyone else around you. Like, what does it mean to you, and how do you want to express it to others, right?
Right.
How do you want to talk about yourself? And that's okay. Like whatever way you want to express that, great. Let's get a narrative around what feels good to you and how you want to express yourself to the world,
Mm,
or to new people that you're meeting. Um, and then when it comes to like engaging in sex, I think the same thing goes there, right? With thinking about your values and your needs first and foremost. I also like to like I do a lot of somatic work, so working with the body and really feeling into the body of like what does my body want right now, right? Is it ready for sex or for even making out, right? Let's just
mm,
check in, right? Let's not just like move really fast because the other person in front of you is moving really fast,
mm,
because maybe they're ready to go and that's great, but doesn't mean that you have to be ready to go too, unless you want to, and that's great too. But I think it's
right.
also like, let's slow down with ourselves and like really see like, okay, do I want to do this? And if I do, wonderful. And if I don't, is it okay to say no? Is it okay to say, hey, I really like you and let's try this again next time, right? Is it okay also to authentically like make out with someone on a first date or a couple dates and then say, actually, that's all I want to do tonight. right? I don't want to move any further than just clothes on, make out, right? And I think that's totally beautiful and okay. I think it just, for me, with clients, is getting them comfortable with like, especially I think more so than not with my vulva bearing women identified clients who often will say yes to any type of connection with the male because of that feeling of I want to be liked, I want to be loved, and I want to, and this is what you do in relationships or in dating. So
Right.
my goal is always like, let's go back to you, right? What do you want in this? Like, how do you, let's learn more about your yeses and your nos and your maybes and how to maybe have these better conversations so you get your most authentic connections and needs met, right? Because that's
Mhm.
more important than whatever the human in front of you wants, right? At that moment. Yeah, so that's kind of where my mind goes with that.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is about, remembering that you're a part of this. So
Mm,
you don't have
yeah.
to just go along because the other person's, hot and ready, and you go along because you're on that same level, and you're allowed to say, I'm not quite there, but maybe if we try this, I would be. How do you feel about that? But see, you and I can easily have this conversation as we're doing currently. However, I find that people taken away from this podcast, it's very difficult for them to
Mm,
sustain any of that. And, it
yeah.
easily flew out of my mouth right now. And, you and I make it sound simple to do because, of what we do for a living, and because what I just said, shared with the audience that, yeah, I have been through the journey. Am I still going through the authentic journey? Yeah, hell yeah. Am I okay with that? Yeah, because life is a destination. No, wait, a journey. Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
But we so my point of saying that is really teaching like people three simple sentences. Of you can tell your body's not there. So in this moment, I need to say, I'm not there, or I'm not
Mm,
ready. But see, the operative word is I'm, and it's not about they're doing something wrong. It's about you realizing you're not there. So,
mhm,
and part of the problem is that whoever goes along with it, and then the night ends or the day ends, whatever it is, and you go back to your apartment house, wherever it is, and you say, "Why did I just do that?" And when I wasn't ready, and then it becomes a whole different thing in that moment for you of
mhm.
regret, you know. So authenticity in being that way is a chance for you to not feel regret,
Yeah.
to feel pleasure on every different level that pleasure can be, and to walk away feeling, hey, that was fine as it was, you know.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's that's a big piece, right? It's just like the after effect, like knowing
mhm,
that you may not be happy with yourself after. And I think sometimes we have to learn that, right, over time of like, okay, I went against my own values or my own boundaries in that moment, and that's totally okay. It happens to all of us, right?
mhm,
I can I've done that before in my life as well. And I think it's, a piece of, okay, giving ourselves compassion in that moment, saying, okay, I went against my boundaries again, or I wasn't my true self in this moment, or my authentic self in this moment. How can I maybe support myself better the next time, right?
right, yeah,
If I want there to be a next time. Um,
mhm,
and, I think that's a huge piece of it. And then, like you said, I think those are some great mantras to say, right, to yourself internally when you are checking in with yourself in the moment. Because it kind of gives you the opportunity to check in with you, right? And
mhm,
not think as much about the other person in that moment
mhm,
and really say, like, what do I need to do in this moment to support me?
right. And I like what you said too, give people permission to make mistakes, you know.
Yeah.
even when, I toot my own horn about being authentic, I'm not always authentic. Even
Sure,
today, I still allow other people to say things they shouldn't say. I don't say anything, even though in that moment I'm sitting there going, "What did she just say to me?" And I let the moment pass. And later I'll say, "Why didn't I say something when I had the opportunity?"
sure.
So, it happens to all of us.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, and I think
yeah,
that's a huge piece is making mistakes to learn,
yeah. Mhm,
right? Also knowing that unfortunately, I guess sometimes we need to code switch depending on where we are in our world, right? And maybe
mhm.
like me sitting hanging out with friends is going to be way different than the human I'm presenting to you in front of you right now.
Right.
But this is also my authentic self as a therapist and as a professional human. And
Mhm,
so versus like my authentic self when I'm with my best friends, right? Or my
mhm.
partner, right? So those are
Right,
different relationships. And so I may show a different side of myself depending on that. Doesn't mean I'm not being authentic in this space. It's just being like I am holding myself in one space as one person and then maybe showing my other parts of myself because I can be more vulnerable with people that know me more personally, right?
right.
So I think it's a little bit of both and then giving yourself that flexibility to kind of like ebb and flow between different settings.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because how you hear talk at work, how you hear talk around your parents, how
Hmm.
you talk around your kids, how you talk when in your religious setting, whatever that may be. Every situation different. How you talk when you're next to a stranger at the grocery store, whatnot. So it's not,
Hmm.
we're not always, um, sometimes we're not even there. We're just a little bit robotic at times. And, at the grocery store, you can be robotic because you're not there to make a relationship. You're there to get milk or whatever it
Sure,
is.
sure.
So
Right, right,
you
right.
you kind of and you're not thinking about that part of being my authentic self at the grocery
Hmm.
store. So and that's okay. It's not
Yeah,
you're not trying to
definitely.
change everybody. Just be comfortable with yourself.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
have any books to recommend for people to?
For being your authentic self.
Yeah,
Yeah. And one that's popping out to me on my bookshelf. I think important for any person that's figuring out their body and the way they work, is Come As You Are is a
yeah.
great book, which I think
Mhm,
maybe we talked about last time as well. But I think it's a great book on just learning about your body and learning about how it works. And I think there's such an authenticity in that because a lot of people weren't given great sex education. And so it's a
mhm,
nice intro book into the body and
right,
into the way that our sexual brain works. And it allows us to be a little more free with that part of ourself, which I really enjoy.
mhm,
And so I always like to give that book as an offering to my clients because I think it's an eye opener for a lot of folks. And well, it was an eye opener for me when I was reading it before I started my journey into this world. So, yeah, I love that book. It's a great book.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on talking about authenticity. We hope you enjoyed it and gained some insight.